Divinely revealed, 7 miraculous signs your breakthrough is near through blessed prayer. In the quaint village of Hilltop Grove, nestled between the gentle hills, an extraordinary tale of faith begins to unfold. Margaret, a devoted mother of a beloved son, David, poured her prayers into the heavens like fragrant incense, asking for divine intervention against a mysterious illness that perplexed even the best doctors. The church bell tolling every Sunday rang like a solemn vow. Hope hung in the air, buoyed by fervent hearts eager for a miracle. One crisp morning, as golden rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, Margaret felt a soft whisper touch her spirit. She glanced outside and saw a single daffodil bloom in her garden, a flower that had never once appeared in winter's hold. Heart racing, a sense of divine presence enveloped her. Could this be a sign? The miraculous intertwined with the mundane, revealing God's fingerprints in her life more often than before. Each gentle breeze felt imbued with blessings, each feathered chirp lifting her spirits higher, as if nature itself echoed her prayers. Days turned to weeks, and Margaret began to witness miracles curl around her like warm light. One evening, as she knelt before the dimly lit altar, a flickering candle suddenly flared brightly, illuminating the room as if kissed by an unseen hand. Confidently, she whispered to St. Jude, "Thank you for the signs." Murmurs of wonder traveled through the congregation, her steadfast conviction molding their faith like clay, making visible what once felt elusive. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she dared to believe, doubt crept in through a skeptic named Thomas. He challenged Margaret during a parish meeting, his scornful eyes dancing with doubt. "Faith alone won't heal your son," he sneered, jeopardizing their fragile hope. Humiliated but resolute, Margaret felt an urge to gather their community for an evening of unified prayer at the historic chapel, a sanctuary of collective whispers and unseen hope, lit by countless candles and the love binding them all. As twilight enveloped the village, the chapel brimmed with villagers, hearts alight with anticipation. Together, they raised their voices in an echoing chorus, the air thick with sacred energy. All at once, an awe-inspiring event unfolded, the chapel filled with an inexplicable warmth, and a radiant light cascaded from above. Overwhelmed, Margaret felt the weight of uncertainty lift, replaced by the confidence that the divine was near. And then, just when collective hope reached its pinnacle, a gasp filled the air, the miraculous healing of David before their very eyes. Shouts of joy erupted as he stood vibrantly alive, the fears of hopelessness cast aside. Each smile, each tear of joy, affirmed their belief and knitted their once fractured community into woven unity. Yet amid the beautiful chaos, Margaret realized the miracle transcended healing. Faith had fortified bonds, igniting an eternal flame that thrived in their hearts. What if this were merely the beginning? As Margaret gazed at the beaming faces around her, anticipation danced in her soul. Could there be more revelations looming just beyond the horizon? The celebration that followed David's miraculous healing infused the village with renewed faith and joy. Laughter and grateful tears poured from every corner of Hilltop Grove, intertwining like a tapestry woven by divine hands. Margaret could hardly believe the transformation. It felt as if the very air sang praises to the heavens. Under the glow of the moonlight, she stood on the chapel steps, bathed in silver light. She gazed at the familiar faces around her, their smiles wide, hope etched in their features. Yet, a deep stirring within her reminded her that this moment was just one thread in a much larger, divine design. As the weeks rolled by, the village felt a shift, a divine current pulsing through their daily lives. Margaret saw new faces during Sunday services, folk drawn to the stories of miracles echoing in the air. Each shared account seemed to add another brushstroke to the colorful mural of faith that was painting itself in Hilltop Grove. Yet, alongside this growing belief, doubt still flickered in hidden corners, perhaps waiting for a moment to resurface. One Sunday, as Margaret sat beside David in worship, her heart swelled. Their church was crowded, filled with a vibrant mix of old friends and newcomers. But in the back, a familiar figure emerged: Thomas. His presence sent a ripple through the congregation. Margaret's heart raced. What would he say? Taking a deep breath, she felt a gentle nudge from within. This is a test of faith, she whispered to herself. As the sermon turned to themes of resurrection and rebirth, Thomas raised his hand. A hush fell over the crowd, his voice, simmering in skepticism, broke the silence. You speak of miracles, but do you not fear delusion? Can we trust what we see? The words hung in the air like a low cloud, casting shadows on their joyous gathering. Some nodded in agreement, while others it felt wrapped themselves in an embrace of faith, their spirits a bright contrast to the darkness Thomas invoked. Margaret found her courage. Thomas, our journey doesn't end with one miracle. Believe me, I once feared too. A wave of murmurs surged through the congregation, some encouraging, others skeptical. Yet as she looked out into the sea of eyes, the warmth of their bond surged through her. In the moment, a warmth enveloped Margaret, a conviction she couldn't explain. She continued, faith is more than reassurance, it is the light in our darkest days. Each of our stories adds to the truth. Are we not living proof together? Thomas fell silent, and for once, doubt flickered like a candle caught in a gentle breeze. A profound hush wrapped around the congregation, each heart collectively holding its breath for resolution. Margaret smiled at him, spirit unyielding. Slowly, the weight in the room shifted, and she sensed eyes turn toward Thomas, waiting for his response. Would he embrace faith today, or linger in doubt? The silence spoke volumes, revealing what all often forget: faith is not just for the bold but beckons even the uncertain. Margaret felt an electric tension spike. It was in moments like this where heaven met earth, divine possibility unmasked. But what would Thomas choose in this defining moment? Could he embrace the share of miracles unfolding? Margaret's heart throbbed with anticipation, knowing that faith could transform even the most skeptical soul. As the congregation awaited the unfolding of this pivotal moment, the air shimmered with spiritual energy. Would faith intertwine with doubt, creating an even more miraculous tapestry? The question hung thick in the air, ready to be answered in the chapters to come. A delicate silence enveloped the chapel as Thomas remained still, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. It was as if the weight of the congregation rested solely on his shoulders. Margaret's heart beat louder in her chest, and she could feel the anticipation coiling amongst the crowd like a live wire. Faith, Thomas finally replied, his voice softer yet laced with disbelief, is it not blind? Can it heal the wounds of reality? Can it bring back what has been lost? There it was, the question that hung in the air like a storm cloud. Margaret could see the doubt written plainly on many of the faces around her, frustration mingled with hope, fear wedged between assurance. She sensed that this moment resonated not only with Thomas but with everyone present. With a gentle breath, she stepped forward. But isn't our reality shaped by our belief? Isn't it through faith that we unlock doors to the impossible? Each miracle we've witnessed has reshaped our understanding. What if believing is what allows us to see? Behind her, David nodded encouragingly, buoying her resolve. The flicker of conviction in her heart ignited into a blaze. The congregation leaned closer, some gripping the edges of the pews, others making silent prayers for Thomas's heart to soften. The dark cloud of doubt slowly dissipated, and a glimmer of acceptance illuminated Thomas's features. Perhaps faith can prompt change, he murmured, almost to himself. But how can we be sure it isn't just wishful thinking? How do we discern the sacred from mere illusion? A hush fell deeper, the kind that invited presence and possibility. Margaret felt the urge to reach deeper, to invite not just Thomas, but all hearts tethering on the brink of belief. Look around, Thomas. See how lives have been transformed. David was a shadow of himself, and now he steps into the light. Isn't that divine? Her authentic gaze locked onto his, and the truth of her words settled among them like warm sunlight breaking through a chilly morning. Thomas shifted uncomfortably, his defenses wavering. But what if hope leads us astray? What if we ask too much? Margaret's mind danced with shared experiences, every healing story, every act of kindness. She knew this wasn't just about her words but about igniting the faith layered in everyone's hearts. Our hope is what keeps us anchored. It draws us together and lifts us. Faith isn't about the absence of fear, but the courage to press on despite it. The air crackled with unspoken excitement. Faces around the room glowed with newfound determination. As Thomas's expression softened, Margaret felt an undercurrent of divine energy ripple through the chapel, setting free the fears that had once held them captive. Perhaps, Thomas's voice faltered slightly, perhaps faith is more than a fleeting thought. Maybe it's that whisper in the depths of our despair, urging us forward. Margaret's heart swelled at his admission, like a flower unfurling in the warmth of spring. The waves of assurance rolled through the room like a gentle tide. She sensed encouragement weaving through the hearts of the villagers, knitting them closer under the banner of collective faith, but just as hope blossomed, a sudden gust swept through the chapel, stirring the air. The heavy wooden doors swung open, casting strange shadows in the flickering candlelight. The congregation gasped, some stood. A figure emerged, cloaked in the fabric of mystery and awe. Who was this newcomer? What message might they carry? Margaret felt electricity surge again. A new chapter beckoned, rich with wonder and the promise of divine intervention. Could this visit shift the tides of their faith even further? The congregation held its breath, ready for the divine revelation that was about to unfold. The figure stepped into the chapel, a gentle light radiating from them, illuminating the faces of the congregation like the dawning of a new day. Gasps of disbelief rippled through the crowd as everyone turned to witness the embodiment of hope that had arrived so unexpectedly. "Peace be with you," the figure spoke, their voice warm and comforting, each word like a soothing balm on weary souls. The figure's eyes sparkled with compassion, and Margaret felt an undeniable pull towards this stranger. Could they be an angel, sent to guide them through this moment of uncertainty? Margaret took a step forward, her heart racing with anticipation. "Who are you?" she asked softly, yet the question echoed throughout the chapel, punctuated by the collective curiosity around her. "I am a messenger of the divine," the figure replied, their tone imbued with sacred authority. "I come not to bring answers but to awaken what resides within you, the faith that can uproot mountains and birth miracles. Look beyond the shadows, for the light of belief has arrived." Thomas, still glancing between Margaret and this mysterious guest, seemed to draw strength from the depth of their words. "But how can we be sure?" he asked, his voice steadier now. "Our hearts yearn for trust, but doubt has been a faithful companion." The figure raised a hand, palm upwards, inviting silence. "Doubt is but a fleeting cloud on the horizon of true faith. There are signs, dear ones, that reveal how close you are to your breakthrough." They took a step closer to the altar, the ethereal light creating a halo around their presence that filled the chapel with warmth and assurance. Margaret felt a stirring in her spirit, a comforting whisper. This was sacred, this was meant to be. The figure continued, "Observe the miracles reflected in your lives. A new dawn can rise from the ashes of despair. When you witness love in unexpected places, when burdens are lifted by the gentle hands of kindness, when unity surges through the hearts of strangers, these are your signs." A murmur spread through the congregation as hope nestled deeper into every heart. David, standing resolute beside Margaret, whispered, "There's truth in what they say." We felt the warmth of community. "Haven we?" The figure nodded approvingly. "Indeed, witness the transformations around you. Each smile exchanged, each moment of grace, they are threads woven into the fabric of divine connection. And remember, when prayers are born from deep longing and faith, they ascend like sweet incense before the throne of heaven." Margaret's soul soared at the truth in their words. The light grew brighter, enveloping each person present in an embrace of reassurance, and she saw tears glimmering in many eyes, not from sorrow but from the release of burdens long held. What if we had the courage to believe again? Thomas ventured, his earlier uncertainty retreating like shadows before the dawn. Then you will witness the wonders of the Almighty, the figure proclaimed, their presence vibrating with a holy energy. Your prayers reflect your hearts, they shall not go unanswered. Remember, I am here to remind you that your breakthrough is already on its way, guided by unseen hands. As the congregation absorbed this revelation, Margaret felt the very air thrum with anticipation. She grasped David's hand tightly, a sense of unity bubbling between them. She knew they were on the brink of something profound. The figure then turned to leave, pausing momentarily at the door. Keep faith close, dear souls, for when you gather in love and prayer, the miraculous shall unfold. Be vigilant, for the signs are all around, and the greatest miracle starts within you. They stepped back into the shadows, leaving the chapel in a reverberating silence that pulsed with newfound desire and wonder. Margaret's heart was alive with faith, every fiber of her being aware that this was only the beginning. What signs would they witness next? What miraculous shifts would unfold in their lives when they stepped forward in unwavering belief? With the divine whisper still echoing in her heart, she turned to the congregation. Let us raise our voices. Let our prayers reach heaven. With anticipation curling in the air, they gathered together, ready to seek the unseen, poised to embrace the wonder of their faith journey ahead. Margaret's voice resonated through the chapel, a rallying cry that stirred the hearts of everyone present. As they began to lift their voices in prayer, the atmosphere changed. It felt electric, charged with an energy that promised something divine. Lord, we come before you, with open hearts and spirits ready to receive. David led, his voice steady and full of conviction. The congregation responded, their words blending into a symphony of faith and hope. Each plea, each word spoken exalted their collective spirit, lifting them beyond the confines of their fears. Margaret closed her eyes, surrendering to the power of the moment. A warmth enveloped her as she focused on the figure's message. Yes, they must believe again. Tears brimmed in her eyes, not from sorrow but from an overflow of gratitude and hope. She could sense that something miraculous was unfurling, a promise woven into the fabric of their prayers. Suddenly, a flicker of light danced through the chapel, brighter than before, pulsing in time with their prayers. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Some gasped, while others fell silent, their eyes wide with childlike wonder. What was happening? Keep praying. Margaret urged, her voice unwavering. They needed to lean into this moment, to hold tightly to the sacred energy surrounding them. As they surrendered further into this divine flow, whispers began to emerge from various corners of the chapel. A young mother spoke of her daughter's healing, an older gentleman declared he felt a burden lifted that he had carried for decades. Can you feel it? A voice broke through, quivering with emotion. It was Thomas, his face aglow with realization. Faith isn't just a feeling, it's an action. He stepped forward, brimming with newfound courage. If our belief is cemented in our hearts, it will transform everything around us. We need to spread this power. Let us share our stories. Let us show others the light we are experiencing here. Nods of agreement echoed in the room. The chapel had become a sacred space of affirmation and assurance, a true haven ignited by miracle and inspiration. Each heartfelt testimony wove together a tapestry of faith that sent ripples of hope into every corner of the congregation. Margaret felt her spirit soar with each word. The air buzzed with anticipation as if the heavens themselves were responding. Every tear shed became a seed of faith planted in rich, fertile ground. A new dawn was breaking, washing over them like a wave. Remember what the messenger said, David reminded them, his eyes brimming with tears. Signs abound, marvels are all around us if we choose to see. As they continued to pray, the flickering light intensified, morphing into subtle colors that illuminated the chapel in a celestial glow. This divine presence was palpable, a tangible blessing that made their hearts swell with joy. Margaret opened her eyes, gazing at her fellow congregants. Their faces, transformed and radiant, reflected a unified vision of hope. In this collective spirit, they stepped into the unknown. They sought after a future rich with blessings underpinned by unwavering faith. But what awaited them beyond this moment? How would their stories of transformation unfold? The atmosphere thickened with sacred anticipation, and as the last prayer echoed, they sensed that the true journey was only beginning. What awaited them next in their shared path of faith? What miracles would they collectively witness that would solidify their trust in the unseen? As the final echoes of prayer lingered in the air, the congregation fell into a silent reverence. A soft glow lingered in the corners of the chapel, a residual shimmer of hope that illuminated their faces. Margaret felt a surge of clarity. Each heart present was vibrating in unison, each prayer like a heartbeat echoing through them all. "Something is happening," she whispered, almost to herself. The warmth was still there, radiating through her entire being, igniting a spark of courage and purpose she hadn't felt in years. Around her, others seemed to feel it too. Little flickers of smiles and knowing glances exchanged spoke volumes of shared belief. It was as if the divine had brushed against their souls, leaving a mark that could not be erased. "Let us share what we feel," David exclaimed suddenly, his voice breaking the stillness. "We must not keep these blessings to ourselves." With that, he stepped forward, standing before his fellow believers who looked to him with expectation. "I see clarity ahead, and each of you carries a piece of this light. Let us not underestimate the power of shining together." Thomas raised his hand excitedly. "I will start. I felt lost for so long, but in this moment of prayer, I realized that God never left my side. He was simply waiting for me to open my heart." His voice trembled as he spoke, but the sincerity flowed freely, drawing nods from the audience. Various testimonies began to pour forth, like fresh springs of hope bubbling to the surface. A single mother shared how she had been struggling, yet today, she felt emboldened. "I had thought all was lost, but in this sacred space, I found the strength to keep going. God has reminded me that I am never alone." Each story brought another wave, a surge of faith washing over their collective spirit. Margaret closed her eyes again, envisioning a garden where all their words planted seeds of miracles. Every prayer shared, every burden lifted, it's all part of something grand, she thought. The atmosphere vibrated with expectation. The light flickered again, casting gentle shadows across enchanted faces. A little girl, sitting cross-legged by her mother, suddenly cried out, "Look! The light is dancing." Her innocent wonder cut through the room. Faith is like that, Margaret thought, recalling the wisdom she'd heard. It dances through our lives, illuminating the darkest corners and guiding our steps. The joy began to swell, and Margaret stood, feeling the urge to join this sacred celebration. With newfound boldness, she shared her experience. "I felt abandoned in my doubts, but today I know God is weaving a tapestry of grace in every tear. He has opened my eyes to see the beauty in waiting and trusting." With each voice lifted and each prayer uttered, the collective faith grew stronger. It ignited their spirits, compelling them to embrace their humble humanity, but also celebrating the divine that danced among them. As the echoes of shared testimony settled, a palpable expectation enveloped the chapel. Margaret felt it feeding her soul. What was this surge of faith destined to create? Could they be on the brink of a profound breakthrough? Uncharted territory lay ahead, filled with promise and divine revelation waiting to unfold. The air buzzed like an unseen thread connecting them all, threading hearts and minds into one divine purpose. Will we embrace the signs? David challenged, his gaze piercing through the glow. Margaret felt her chest rise with hope. The journey had only just begun, and the wonders yet to be revealed were beyond imagining. What awaited them in the tapestry woven by those prayers? What paths would their faith lead them down, richer than they'd ever anticipated? The answers hovered just beyond their reach, shimmering in the light of this gathering. And with every longing prayer, they began to step forward, diving deeper into the mystery of God's plan for them all. What divine intervention awaited in the unfolding next as they journeyed onward, hand in hand? The atmosphere in the chapel shifted, the palpable buzz of expectation deepening into something almost tangible. It felt as if a new chapter was being written, a doorway to the divine just barely ajar. Margaret's heart raced, compelled to uncover what lay beyond. One by one, voices rose to fill the sacred space. Each testimony, each shared heartache and triumph, wove tendrils of faith that spiraled around them like threads of golden light. It became clear that they were not just sharing, they were building a sanctuary through words, where dreams mingled with revelations and prayers became powerful beacons. "Can you feel it?" asked Susan, her eyes wide with wonder as she glanced around the room. "Something important is stirring within us." "Yes," echoed a deep voice from the back, a man named Jacob who had come to the congregation seeking comfort. "I've waited so long for clarity, for purpose. I've crossed many valleys, but here, among you all, it feels like I'm finally being led home." As if caught up in a divine current, Margaret felt each of their stories resonate in her spirit, echoing within her like a chorus of angels. She marveled at how fearlessly they spoke. It reminded her that vulnerability is not weakness, rather, it is an essential part of building real connections with others. Through shared struggles and blessings, the bond of faith only grew stronger. With gratitude swelling in her chest, she took a breath and called out, "Together, we can embrace the challenge of this faith. Let us lean into each other during the storms and hold tight to the light." The words were met with an enthusiastic response. "Amen," echoed through the room, a symphony of voices rising as one. The collective courage pulsed like electricity, illuminating even the darkest corners of doubt. As they basked in this moment, Margaret's mind drifted to the future. What would it look like if they truly embraced this unity? Would they be willing to step out of their comfort zones and trust in a purpose greater than themselves? Suddenly, the chapel doors swung open, and a burst of sunlight flooded in, casting a warm glow over the gathered hearts. Margaret squinted against the brightness, and like a hush falling over the crowd, this divine illumination transformed the very air around them. Could this be a sign? A whisper floated among them. The air felt charged, full of possibilities. "Remember, faith isn't just about waiting for something to happen. It's about believing even before you see." David chimed in, his voice strong and steady. Just then, a ripple of laughter broke through, started by the little girl who first spotted the light. "The sun is playing with us," she giggled, innocent and true. Margaret couldn't help but smile, her heart soared at the girl's perspective. It was a gentle reminder that faith doesn't always take the form of solemnity. Sometimes, it dances freely like children in a field, open to joy and surprises. In that moment of collective awakening, this blend of laughter and light, Margaret felt a gentle nudge within, urging her to spark deeper exploration. "What if we were to follow this light together?" she proposed to the group. It was a question that hung in the air, heavy with the weight of endless possibilities. Would they collectively unpack layers of their faith and venture into uncharted paths of their blessings? His plans seemed unknowable, yet so fools rush. Finally, trust held the key. What marvelous breakthrough would come from their collective faith? What revelations waited beyond the threshold of their sanctuary? Their hearts pounded in anticipation, ready to embrace whatever the journey would bring. And thus, under the soft caress of the sun's rays, Margaret felt what God had not yet revealed, a tapestry woven not just with prayer, but with threads of trust and action, ready to be unfurled. What awaited them in this divine revelation, just around the corner? The sunlight poured in, casting an ethereal glow across the chapel, igniting hope in every heart. It was as if the room itself had come alive, pulsating with a rhythm only those in faith could understand. Margaret's call to embrace the light was met with excited murmurs. Their collective expectancy hung in the air, thick with potential. "Let us gather around that beautiful light," she suggested, her voice lifting everyone's spirit. As they moved closer to the warm embrace of the sun's rays, the atmosphere transformed. The chapel, once a place of solitude and reflection, became a vibrant circle of rising faith. Jacob offered a prayer, his voice deep and steady, "Lord, guide us as we step into the light. Illuminate our path, and let us follow where you lead." His earnestness resonated, filling the space with a holy reverence. One by one, they began to share their visions. Susan spoke first, her words tumbling forth like a waterfall of inspiration. "I see us not just as a congregation, but as a movement. We can bring hope to the broken, spread kindness where there's despair. Imagine the lives we could touch." Her enthusiasm was infectious. A wave of excitement surged through the group. Each soul envisioned something different, yet all were wrapped within the same divine thread. Dreams of community outreach, reconciliation, and love echoed around the chapel. Margaret's heart swelled. "God has placed talents in each of us," she added, feeling the spark of authenticity. "Let us not bury them anymore. Let us step out and share them." A voice piped up from the back. It was Rachel, usually quiet but now inspired. "I've always felt a calling to use my art for His glory. What if we hosted an art show to display our stories and invite others in?" "A beautiful idea," someone exclaimed, the sound bouncing off the walls like a joyous shout. With each shared thought, the light seemed to grow brighter, a tangible energy building around them. It was gnawing at their restraint, urging them to act. But amidst the exhilaration, a flicker of apprehension remained, woven within their hopes. "Are we ready to commit to this?" David asked, the question hanging in the air. A moment of sacred silence enveloping the room. Margaret felt the weight of uncertainty. They had been stirred, inspired, but now came the challenge of action. "Yes, we can be afraid, but our faith will guide us." She spoke, voice steady. "What if God is testing our willingness to leap?" In that moment, the little girl from earlier tugged at Margaret's sleeve. "What does leap mean?" she asked, innocently curious. Margaret knelt down, meeting her gaze. "It means stepping forward, trusting that God will catch us. Sometimes, we have to jump into the unknown." Suddenly, laughter erupted, ringing like bells through the chapel. "I want to leap. Can we leap right now?" The girl's enthusiasm was a reminder of the faith and simplicity often lost in adulthood. "Why not?" Margaret chuckled, her eyes sparkling. "Let us leap together. Let us embrace every challenge." With a cheer, they held hands, forming a chain of faith and courage. Margaret closed her eyes and led them in a prayer of commitment, a prayer infused with hope and readiness for the adventure that lay ahead. As they concluded, a palpable shift occurred. It felt as though they had crossed a threshold, stepping into a fuller reality of their purpose. The sun's rays didn't just illuminate them, they validated their intentions, bringing fresh assurance that they weren't walking this path alone. "Together, we will rise," she proclaimed, her heart beating with divine energy. But in the midst of their joy, a gentle voice broke through like a slight breeze, a reminder of the disciples. What sacrifices would they inevitably have to make? What challenges were waiting just outside the safety of love and light? Margaret sensed the divine mystery hovering nearby, invoking stirring questions in their hearts. With every leap, real faith was tested. Just beyond the chapel doors, the true journey awaited, where revelation danced entwined with risk. What awaited them in that vast expanse? What whispers of the Spirit would guide their steps as they walked into the unknown? The next chapter of their journey was about to unfold. As the prayer ended, a stillness settled over the chapel, inviting an almost reverential hush. It was as if time paused, holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. Each face was illuminated not only by the sunlight but also by an infectious zeal to embrace the divine path that lay ahead. David broke the silence, uncertainty still shadowing his thoughts. "We've made promises, but how do we begin? Sometimes it feels easier to dream than to act." His voice trembled slightly, a reflection of the collective apprehension shared by many. Margaret noticed it, too. Stepping forward, she spoke with conviction. "Faith is a journey that starts with a single step. We don't need to see the whole staircase, just our first step. What if we spent time together this week in prayer and planning? Nods of agreement echoed throughout the group. Hope stirred anew. They didn't have to have all the answers immediately. The power of willingness would fuel their intentions, and the tapestry of their combined faith would guide them. Rachel's enthusiasm rekindled, her eyes sparkling with imagination. We could do a gathering next week, a celebration of our ideas. Maybe even invite the community to hear our stories, to share in this leap with us. Exactly! Exclaimed Jacob, his voice rising with excitement. Let us proclaim our desire to leap into action. It's not just about us, it's about reaching others, showing them they're not alone, that there is a light ahead. As visions of their gathering hummed in the air, a sense of purpose cultivated within them. They began brainstorming ideas, each person contributing a thread to the growing fabric of their mission. Laughter mingled with excited chatter, uplifting spirits even further. Then, a chill swept through the room. The sunlight seemed to flicker, as though it too was listening intently. Margaret sensed the shift. It was a nudge, a whisper nudging her heart, reminding her that every calling requires fortitude. With a deep breath, she dared to voice her concern. Friends, we must also be aware that stepping out into the light means confronting darkness too. Are we ready to face the challenges that are bound to arise? There may be opposition, doubts, or even moments of despair. Her eyes met those of the young girl, who had captured their hearts with her innocence. Perhaps it was this very innocence that inspired Margaret to continue. But, just as light dispels darkness, our faith can conquer fear. The congregation began murmuring amongst themselves, a tapestry of hope mingling with the rising tension. Then, from the corner, a voice broke through. The church elder, a figure of wisdom wrapped within frail years, spoke softly but firmly. Every journey in faith is marked by trials, not to pull you down but to elevate your spirit. It is in those moments that our true power is revealed. His words washed over them like a gentle wave. Margaret felt the warmth return, igniting the flicker of courage within their hearts. We are not alone in this, she urged. Let us remember our purpose and turn to each other when we falter. Together, we are stronger. The energy shifted again, surging through the room. Hands were clasped tighter, their hearts beat in unison. Hope had woven a secure bond among them. With plans set in motion for the following week, they dispersed, a vibrant group full of anticipation. Yet a lingering question remained in Margaret's mind, a soft whisper of the spirit that felt heavy but necessary. What sacrifices awaited them? What would they need to relinquish in order to embrace their new path? Margaret stepped outside, the sun's glow cradling her as she adjusted to the world beyond the chapel walls. She felt both a weight and exhilaration inside her. Just as light blends with shadows, their journey ahead seemed to dance on the edge of praise and uncertainty. As she gazed towards the horizon, a shiver of excitement coursed through her. In that moment, she understood that their leap would not be without both trial and triumph. But what awaited them on the other side of doubt? What divine signs would illuminate their way forward? The answers lay just out of reach, waiting for the courage of their hearts to uncover. As dawn broke over Hilltop Grove, Margaret felt an urgent stirring within her heart. The air buzzed with anticipation, an electric promise of change lingering in every breath. This was the day they would stand united, boldly stepping into the light, ready to share their stories, their faith, and invite the world in. The chapel, a sanctuary of hope, overflowed with familiar faces. Laughter mingled with prayers, creating a harmonious symphony that reached the heavens. Margaret stood beside David, her hand resting on his shoulder, a silent reflection of her gratitude for the miracle of his healing. He looked up at her, eyes shining with unyielding faith, a testament to their journey. Today, we embrace our purpose. Margaret called out, her voice radiating. A wave of excitement rippled through the congregation. One by one, they began to share their dreams, sowing seeds for a community mission that would extend beyond the walls of their beloved chapel. Susan spoke of organizing aid for families in need. Rachel unleashed visions of art workshops that brought generations together through creativity, while Jacob envisioned events spreading joy and faith in public spaces. But what if we invite our neighbors? Someone shouted from the back, a voice full of eagerness. What if we share the light that has ignited within us? Yes. Thomas exclaimed, his words like a soft balm on the room. We've witnessed miracles, our hearts united in this quest. Let us open our doors, let us invite everyone to experience this divine presence. Cheers filled the air, infectious enthusiasm pushing aside any lingering self-doubt. They were no longer just villagers, they were warriors of faith, ready to challenge the shadows that had once loomed over them and their dreams. But amid the excitement, Margaret felt a wave of uncertainty sweep through the group. She wanted to acknowledge the trials they might face, the fears that would challenge them. Gathering her resolve, she spoke, "My friends, let us also be mindful that every act of faith comes with obstacles. Doubts may arise, and not everyone will welcome us. But we have learned that the strength of our belief can carry us through. We will lean on one another." The group fell into a solemn hush, the realities before them mixing with determination. With love and unity, she continued, we will shed light on any darkness that comes. We have seen what prayer can do. Together, we can face the world. Together. They echoed back, voices rising in defiance against fear. The sun peeked through the chapel windows, illuminating their faces, as if the heavens themselves smiled down upon them. It felt like a divine affirmation, sealing their intentions in a sacred promise. As they prepared to step out into the world, Margaret felt her spirit soar. Her heart brimmed with joy as she recognized that this was just the beginning. They were creating a ripple that would transcend their humble village, reaching hearts yearning for hope. In every step they took, every story they shared, they would unlock the miraculous potential lying dormant in others. After they finished, David squeezed her hand, his eyes beaming with excitement as he took a step forward. "Let us go share our light," he urged, infectious spirit sparking momentum. The congregation erupted in applause, hearts beating as one, ready for the journey ahead. Outside, the radiant sun greeted them like an old friend. The sound of laughter and faith echoed through Hilltop Grove as they ventured door to door, inviting the community to partake in their divine calling. Margaret felt each interaction as a brush against the canvas of potential futures. They embraced neighbors who had remained strangers before, shared stories that instilled hope, and gathered support for their endeavors. Word spread, hearts were opened, weeks turned into a passionate whirlwind of outreach, community gatherings, and joyous celebrations filling the streets with life. Each initiative sparked transformation bonds forged from shared burdens, laughter echoing in the faint shadows of fear. Merely touching the essence of faith brought light where darkness had once loomed. On one sunlit evening, gathered at the chapel, Margaret could hardly believe her eyes. Hilltop Grove had morphed into a vibrant tapestry of love and connection, woven from the simplest threads of faith. As she gazed upon the joyful faces surrounding her, she knew that the miraculous had not just been in their healing, but in the unity forged through shared vulnerability. With the community together, they prayed, grateful for the journey they had braved together. Tears of gratitude sparkled as their voices rose in a celebration of triumph, a collective testimony to the transformative power of faith. Realization washed over Margaret, and she smiled. They had shattered the chains of doubt, not only for themselves but for each other. The doubts that once threatened to snuff out their light now served to illuminate their path with purpose. As they finished, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting radiant colors across the sky. It was a heavenly masterpiece, a sign that new beginnings had just begun, and in the depths of her heart, she sensed the divine whisper proclaiming her faith was more than just for herself, it was a beacon guiding others home. The sacred journey was ongoing, with countless miracles unfolding just beyond their reach, waiting patiently for those willing to leap into the embrace of the tangible love, alive with grace, weaving their way through life like fragrant incense wafting into the heavens. As their voices mingled with the night air, Margaret felt an overwhelming urge to share. This was only the beginning of their testimony, a beautiful manifestation of faith that would inspire not just Hilltop Grove but all who dared to believe. Now it is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive faith stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the light alive. Comment below your reactions and testimonies about the ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this manifestation. Don't wait even one more second, for it is time to illuminate the world with our combined stories of faith. Blessed journey.